Welcome to Grammar 3F. In this book, we are going to look at adverbs, a subject of a command, and sentence diagramming for both commands and questions. So first, let's jump right into adverbs. So in this book, we're going to mainly look at adverbs that tell you where the verb is occurring. So let's look at our example. We have the sentence, should they go home? As you can see, it's in question format. So if you ever get confused by the question format and you're having trouble finding the verb, phrase, or anything like that, either on the paper or in your head, just go ahead and change that to the declarative or statement format so that you have the sentence, they should go home. And this can help you identify things. You might be a little bit more used to it, but we are going to switch back over to the format given, which is the question, and we're going to identify the subject. So this one should be pretty straightforward. The subject is they, and then our verb phrase is should go, and home is describing where they should go. So we're going to circle it and draw an arrow, and remember we always draw the arrow to the main verb because it's describing the action of the sentence. So that's how you'll work with adverbs in this booklet. Now we're going to move on to what the subject of a command is. So let's look at our example sentence. We have the sentence, sit properly. Well, first, let's identify what we do have available to us. So we know that sit is the verb, and we know that properly is describing how we should sit. So we're going to circle and draw an arrow. So now, of course, the one thing we're missing is the subject, because you can't have a sentence if you don't have a subject and verb. So in this, when you have a command, you have an understood you. You sit properly. So what you're going to do is you're going to write in the subject you, and you need to put parentheses around it. And that helps you understand that it's not given, it's an understood subject. So we went ahead and underlined that, and now you have correctly identified all the parts of a command. So just make sure you write you and you put parentheses around it. Now let's look at how we're diagramming commands. So we're going to look at our example, explain thoroughly. As we just learned, we know that since this is a command, our subject will be you. So I've written that in, and I've got it in parentheses, as I should. And since we now have our whole sentence, we can just go through this normally. So we're underlining the subject, double underlining the verb, and now we have the word thoroughly left over. And that is describing how you should explain. So I'm going to circle that and draw an arrow to explain. So now let's get into the actual diagramming part. So we're going to have our baseline bisected so that we have our subject and predicate separated. And then, of course, we have a describing word for our verb, also known as an adverb. So let's fill in the blanks. We have you as our subject. Notice that on here, even though it's the diagram, we're still including the parentheses because it's an understood you. It's not a given you. So make sure you remember that all the times that you have a command and are working with a command. And then we're going to put in our verb, which is explain, and then we're going to put in our adverb, which is describing the verb, and that is thoroughly. So now we have diagrammed the command. So let's get into the question. So we have the example sentence, did you fall asleep? And first we're going to identify the easy part, which is the subject. And now we're going to identify our verb phrase. And in this sentence, it's did fall. Now, if you are confused as to what the verb phrase was, remember to put it in sentence or statement format, and that will help you a lot with this kind of situation. And now we only have one word left, and that is asleep, and that's describing how we fall. We're falling asleep. So now that we have everything situated, we are going to start diagramming. So we've got our baseline bisected, so we have our subject and predicate. And once again, we have an adverb, so we're going to make that diagonal line off of the verb. So let's fill in these blanks. We have you as our subject. Notice that there are no parentheses there because it's a given you. It's not understood. And then we have our verb phrase, which is did fall, and that is described by asleep. And there we have our question diagrammed. If you have any questions over this or any other grammar issues, then please contact the person who grades your grammar.